Good afternoon, everybody on YouTube. This is Rick Thomas from Obsolete Video Services. Hey guys, I am working on this Sony Bvw-70 Bvw-70. These are a real pain in the ass machine. Luckily, I've worked on so many of them. It's like riding a bike, but there's an awful lot of work that has to be done on these. And when people send me one of these type of decks, it's not cheap to fix because it's a complete teardown. What I mean by teardown is I mean complete teardown. Loading ring taken apart, the motors are removed, everything's removed to get this loading ring out. There's mechanisms in this thing that go bad, and they have to either, sometimes you can fix them, but generally in most cases you can't, and you have to try to locate brand new parts. Well, as you can see, we got the loading arm fixed, see? And that now does what it's supposed to. That's the loading arm. I just got to replacing this whole new mechanism. Brand new. Okay, so now that was a major problem. But there's also a mechanism on the far right that goes bad. This is a drag mechanism for tension. And what happens is, I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's another aluminum gear right here that goes on a pin that locks up and it's not movable. And when they lock up and seize, they just, no matter what you do, it's almost impossible to break them loose without breaking the aluminum with a pair of pliers. I mean, it's just a real crap design. But Sony designed these things with aluminum and stainless steel pins. Not a good idea. That was a pretty bad idea. I just got done rebuilding this particular mechanism. As you can see, it now does what it's supposed to do. See that? That's what it's supposed to do. So you have two mechanisms that fail on this machine. This one here, I was able to free up with some lubricating oil after about 2 hours, and it's soaked in there enough to where I was able to free it loose and then take it apart and rebuild it and re-grease it and new oil and everything else to get it back to where it belongs. So now this is a free working mechanism. It's important because it's part of the actual drive mechanism that actually lets it engage for the ring to go around the entire drum. It's a very, very important part. Okay, here you got your loading arm, the old one. Okay, that's the loading arm that was on there. But this is the lower part, and this one's frozen solid. You can't even move it. See the aluminum piece right here? It goes on this little shaft where my thumb is. That's supposed to be able to be moved. I can't even move it with my finger. And I soaked this thing and took pliers to it. I can't even move it. It is locked in place. I mean, literally, from sitting... the particular metals, they meld together and you just can't get them apart. Without taking a pair of pliers to this and breaking it, once it gets to this point, you can't do anything. So I got in today the new loading arm, which is this whole mechanism here, which you now see in here. See? Now, as you let's get this guy. Now watch. See the loading arm moves. See? And then it locks. See how freely that's supposed to be? That's what it's supposed to do. These machines are notorious for this problem, and it's a complete rebuild. And if you want me to fix your machine and do it properly like this, it's not cheap, guys. I mean, it's expensive. But I do a complete teardown, so the machine's back to how it was when it was new, with new parts or new fixable parts on the unit that were defective, and replacing the new parts on the unit. This is an awful lot of work. Then I've got to actually rebuild this little motor and put a new belt on it. But then again, you got to know how to put all this back together again. It takes years and years of experience of working on these. This is not a simple fix. This takes time. This is a lot of parts, a lot of adjustments, and then I have to do all the alignments on this thing. And now I've noticed on this thing it's got bad brakes, so I'm gonna have to make some new brake pads for these, so these things stop. It looks like that's another error problem this thing had. So this thing had several issues. We're getting all the main mechanism fixed first, and that's got to do with basically the loading arm, basically because the loading arm itself was completely frozen solid. It just wouldn't move. It wouldn't go anywhere. It's been like that for years and years and years, apparently. It's been sitting for a very long time. Couldn't even move it. I mean, it's unbelievable. So we got this one rebuilt. So now, basically, this one does work fine. I got this completely rebuilt. This one here is completely frozen solid, and I should show this as an example to people that own these machines. All right, and once it gets to this point, people, you're in a bad situation because there ain't a whole hell of a lot you can do to fix these. When the aluminum gets melded together in there, I've used every type of solvent. Nothing will break this loose. I take a pair of pliers and try to grab this and zip it off this pin. I'll end up chewing this up or breaking the aluminum piece completely off. When these things get really bad like this, there's nothing you can do. You have to replace the whole mechanism. Not an easy part to find either. These mechanisms are not easy to get. But I replaced the entire swing arm. This is going to be the guide arm. This is completely rebuilt. And like I said, I'm going to put some new brakes on this. I'm going to have to put some new pads because these are spinning way too loose. And that's going to let the tape just foil right out into the unit because it has no stoppage to the spindles. So we got to put some new brake pads on this thing. I noticed that right off the bat, which must have been a big error code. We're going to replace the rebuilt mechanism part 2, which is going to go there. We can get the loading ring back where it belongs, and then we'll do step-by-step putting this thing back together again. But this was a really big problem. I am so happy I was able to get it changed out. So that's going to be a very big plus, because if this loading ring doesn't engage and everything smoothly runs the tape around the drum, you're going to get error codes up the wazoo, and they're going to be flying everywhere. You're going to get error codes for the spindles, the loading ring, you name it. I mean, I've done hundreds of these, so I know basically how it works and the parts you need. So if you have any of these Bvw-70 or 75s and you want them serviced, I can do it. Like I said, I know this machine very, very well. Been working on these units for a long time. So we're going to get this one serviced. It's going to take another day or so. We're making big headway on it. We got one of the major problems fixed, which is the swing arm. So now we got that installed. We're going to install the second mechanism that was locked up and frozen. And then we're going to work our way back, and then going to do the brake pads on the spindles probably last. But we're making serious headway on this thing. So anyways, if you have any Sony Bvw-70s, Bvw-75s, this is a common problem with this model. And basically the mechanism needs to be tore down, and the swing arms in general always have to be replaced. And the second mechanism needs to be rebuilt or replaced as well. And you got to work your way back and re-lube, do the alignments, and then check the brakes. And once you get all that general stuff done, these decks work really good. But if these decks sit and they're not used, that's the worst thing you can do. So I hope you guys enjoy this video.